Hello on the Rockers. It's all about the voice with voice actor and playwright, hot off the heels of his debut as Morph in X-Men 97 and voicing some of the biggest character names in animation. We're going to talk about it all with jazz hands and with my guest co-host, actor and nightlife queen, Michael Vega, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass, let the drinks begin. It's On the Rocks.
A banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy, buns and bows and pantyhose. On the Rocks podcast, the place where we're too glam to give a damn. Tonight, we are drinking House of Love cocktails. Everybody say love.
Love.
This is our first time drinking canned cocktails, by the way. And what I love about them, it goes from 4% alcohol to 12% alcohol. Guess which one I have? 12%. And it's all natural, by the way. None of the artificial BS like I eat with all my other meals. This is natural. It's all good for you. And if you can't drink by yourself, how the hell are you going to drink with anybody else? Can I get a gay man? Don't sue me, RuPaul. House of Love cocktails. You can buy them so you can drink with us. We'll be featuring them every week. So buy your package, have it delivered, drink with us every week. Okay, for all of you Southern California peeps, On the Rocks is coming to WonderCon, presented by Comic-Con at Anaheim Convention Center on Friday, March 29th at 6 p.m. in room 300A. I'll be joining the panel Gay Geeks and Where to Find Them with a bunch of other cool queer geeks, all representing different genres. I will be representing all things Star Trek, so live long and prosper. We will see you there. What I love, when I first started doing the Gay Geeks panel, we were like the only gay panel, and now there are so many gay panels at Comic-Con and WonderCon, so I'm very happy. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at On the Rocks on Air, and on Facebook, On the Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email, book me for pride, wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I'll show up. No. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. Send us your comments, your guest requests, and we got your guest questions. The show's presented by Straw Hat Media. You can watch and or listen to our now over 350 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch if you're still on Facebook, streaming with Pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 on the East Coast. Hello, East Coast. We proudly tape at UBN Go Studios, your one-stop place for podcasting. All right, let's get the show on the road. Returning to On the Rocks, Michael Vega, an actor of stage and screen, some notable theaters he's had the pleasure of working for. Theater Rhinoceros, one of the longest-running theaters in the country, to give voice to our LGBTQ community. New Conservatory and The Exit, all of which are in San Francisco. The Flea in New York, and The Celebration in the Hudson here in Los Angeles. Recently appeared in the short film for music video Cash Money Honey, and he also proudly moonlights as a bartender for one of the most iconic LA nightclubs in West Hollywood, Mickey's. Please welcome Michael Vega.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, so we're talking all things X-Men.
Yes.
Today. I know, the X-Men wheelhouse it's not quite in my wheelhouse.
It's so in my wheelhouse. It is my entire wheelhouse.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask. And I did my research. I watched the show with all 5 million other people, by the way. Deadline and Disney reported that in the first 5 days, over 4 million views, and now it's even more.
It's amazing. And I think one of the highest rated shows on, currently this year so far. So, yes.
And lots of sexy animation, by the way. I was like,
gosh.
I want the After Dark version.
I cried. I started it, and it just everything flooded back. I mean, there's a nostalgic feel, yet it feels modern. There's they're up in the animation, of course, more budget, etc. But yeah, it had everything that I needed and more.
Well, it's set in 97, which I love. There's a little lingo in there, not that was fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, since I was born in 97, it's a return
Allegedly.
to my birth. But I want to know what was your first exposure to X-Men, and why has it stayed with you all these years? Because I talked to many adults in advanced age that
and that's we're done here.
But somebody that's exposed to X-Men, it stays with them all their lives. They're reading the comics, they're watching the shows, they're watching the movies. What was your first exposure, and what was the allure of it that it stuck with you all your life?
I mean, my first exposure, I remember going to the local 7-Eleven, right? And back then, in the 40s, comics were about 30 cents, and my mom would give me a couple of bucks, and there was 2 older ladies at the 7-Eleven who knew that I wanted to see the new books every year. I mean, every week, right? And so, sometimes I'd go in when they haven't even put them out. but it got to the point where they're like, "Oh, this kid is here. Let's just let him go through." And I think I forget the storyline that was going on, but there was a very sort of family feel to the group, and and the subject of persecution. I mean, I was dealing with that as a
so
young
blatantly
gay,
there.
and
Yeah.
and there are groups trying to persecute, put down this other group, and that just resonated with me. And especially growing up in at the time, I was in a home with two moms, so I was getting a little flat from fellow classmates and stuff, and so this was my escape. And and then it bled out into buying the action figures and any sort of anything involved with them, and so I've kept it up to this day.
What's funny, we're going to talk about the parallels between Star Trek, because, that is my wheelhouse. Like, anything Star Trek, from my mom raised me on Star Trek, and it was the same thing. It was just my mom and me. And so the Star Trek universe became our family, so to speak. So whenever a new movie came, she would take me out of school, like in the morning, we would go see it. But it was getting really in that universe. And to your point, Star Trek used to have paperbacks that would come out, and there was like 300 of them. And the bookstore owner knew every week, like, put whatever out there and keep it aside. And that was this excitement. And those characters became my family, like you said.
Oh, absolutely. And at the time, there was a very young member of the team. And so I related to her, in so many ways. It's this newbie in the house and her struggles, trying to acclimate to the school. And so it just felt like, oh, this is my life. And maybe somewhere I thought I had powers, but that's a whole other matter.
I know what your powers are. We can't discuss them on the air.
We're still doing therapy for that.
What did you love most about the premiere? Because I know everybody that I talked to that was such an X-Men fan. This is a continuation of a story that ended in 97. That's why it's called 97. What did you love most about the premiere?
I love, I already know. Having read all these stories, I can already see where they're going with a lot of the stories. I don't know how they're going to, like with the MCU. They bring together a bunch of storylines and make it one cohesive story. So I could see what they're borrowing from. But what I liked is if you weren't familiar with the lore, you could watch it for the first time and still get a sense of what's going on. It was very well done in establishing the relationships between who's who and who's what, and the characters very strongly. So I really loved that.
What I loved was the end credits, and it has each character and it has like what their power is. So like I like okay, now I get it. But it's so well established on the very first episode for somebody like me that is not quite in that universe, and I feel caught up and I'm excited.
Yeah, you honestly can watch it out of the blue and not know anything about the characters and get a sense of, oh, this is the dynamic that's going on.
Now, for those of not totally into X-Men, the whole show, we're going to talk about JP's early career. We're going to talk about how he got into voice acting. We're going to talk about his other characters because the story is very fascinating, and it takes place on stage. It takes place on camera. He played a singing telegram person, which I love. I wish we could play a clip, but they'll sue me because it was hilarious. But we are going to answer your X-Men questions because I did get them. But we're really going to talk about JP's career as a whole. As an actor, have you done any voiceover work?
I've never done yet any sort of animation or video games or anything like that yet.
I just dripped House of Love cocktails all the time.
12% all over your chest.
I wasted 12%.
I'm doing 4%, by the way. I'm the responsible one. Wait, what were we saying? Voiceover.
You've ever done any cartoon just like that phone sex
Not voiceover,
operator
but
one?
I have had to do some voiceover work. I did this, I was on this episode of Trauma. It was basically ER with helicopters in San Francisco. And I know.
That sounds so gay. I'm into it. Yeah.
And I was a paramedic, and they had the grounded helicopter, big fans going. And so I had to wheel this gurney as the pilot comes towards me to ask the what's going on. I'm like, this is Hank, BP over, blah, 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 pronator drift, all this medical jargon. Then we fold up the gurney and, put it in the helicopter. About a week we do it. And then about a week later, I get a call from a producer saying, well, where they had the big fans going,
of course,
you're
going to have to
could not hear any of the dialogue.
Yep.
So they had me come into the studio. And I wasn't there long, But it was a real challenge to not just match up. I had to match up this paragraph of medical jargon. I had to match perfectly, but also the energy. That was the hardest part. So I'm in there, I'm slugging coffee, and I'm, moving. It's much harder than perhaps some people know.
And I'm like, pay me twice. I already acted. Like, I was done with that role. You want me to come back and do it? Pay me again.
Like, I couldn't just come in there and be like, okay, pronator drip, blah, 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 blah. I had to be in the energy space of wheeling a gurney into a helicopter and all that. So that was a challenge, and that was my one experience. And then I got paid again. That was a great thing. There was a second check for that I wasn't expecting. So, bravo to that.
I wanted to get into voice work early, but I had such a high-pitched voice, like especially right after college. Like, what am I going to do? Because it was that era of like every movie trailer was like, in a world of never-ending story. And I was like, here I am. No, but now things are changed. Okay, let's stop. It's time to bring in our guest of the hour. Very excited here. Are you ready? Because I know that you were very excited about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. JP Karliak has voiced such iconic characters as Wile E. Coyote, the Tin Man, Willy Wonka, Entropy, and Netflix's Boss Baby, by the way. He's also played a bunch of Marvel heroes and villains like Loki, Hawkeye, the Vision, and the exceptionally nasty Green Goblin in Spidey and His Amazing Friends. He recently made his debut as Morph in X-Men 97, the first non-binary Marvel lead character to be featured in an animated series, and as the Joker in the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game. And aside from voiceover, he is an award-winning solo performer. His critically acclaimed one-man show, Donna Madonna, was a very personal play, which we're going to chat about. He has 3 one-act plays that range on topics. We're going to talk about that, too. He's a founder of Queer Vox, the nonprofit academy for LGBTQ plus voice actors, and the co-founder of voter registration organization Nerds Vote. Please welcome JP and his Karliak.
Hello.
Hello. You are so colorful. Sometimes you meet voiceover actors and they come in and like, hi. And then they look like they've lived in their house for 20 years and have never been out of their house.
Yeah, I don't love to go along with the stereotype of that. I just wear sweatpants to work all the time. I like to dress up.
Although that could be fun too, though.
Oh,
every now and then.
Sure,
it's like,
sure. I'm a big fan of Mel Blanc. For those that don't know, the voice of all of the Looney Tunes back in the day. He went to work every day in a suit and a carnation. So I'm a big fan of
didn't know that. That's
dress for the job.
Well, and we're going to talk about how you recorded the sessions for X-Men 97 because you guys were not in the same room. You were at home. But growing up, I made friends with this little church lady, and she was Jean Vanderpilt. And she was the original voice of Wilma Flintstone, and she was the original voice of Rosie the Robot, and she played Mrs. Spacely and all the characters. So she would, after church,
Mr. J.
Yeah. So afterwards, she would regale us with these voices in the middle of church, and then she every time she would bring like a studio pick, and with the Flintstones, the 4 of them were around their microphones, suits and full gloves, dresses, the whole bit. That was like how they came to
It's
work.
like a radio play.
Yeah, 100%, and that
I
was
love
just their daily and. They rebooted the Jetsons and they replaced the daughter with Tiffany because she was really big at the time. And Jean was like, you know what, I'm out. Mr. Spacely, I'm out. But yeah, that's definitely from an era
Tiffany
ago.
and not Deborah Gibson, star of stage and screen.
She's back to Debbie, don't you know?
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She'll yell at you.
I do love Deborah Gibson. Debbie Gibson.
Yes. And she makes a good sandwich at Subway on Fairfax. It is so good. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Anyway, we're going to talk all about X-Men. Do not worry. But I want to know how JP became JP. You grew up in Dunmore, which is a small town next to Scranton. You talked
that's
about...
the PA.
That is the
That's
PA.
the PA.
That's the PA.
You've talked in other interviews about movies were a big contributor to you kind of getting that bug, and you saw Guys and Dolls in New York. Mm-hmm. But what exactly got you to think, I want to be an actor? Was it a performer? Was it one particular movie? Were you doing High School Musicals? Like, what kind of kid were you?
Let's unfurl the trauma. No, I mean, I grew up a adopted queer only child, which is a look at me, please validate me, give me attention. That's all that is. So yeah,
That's not far from the truth. I mean, I grew up as an only kid.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. But as far as oh God, I mean, I talk about like voiceover came to me because I loved animation, and seeing Robin Williams do Aladdin was sort of the gateway to that. But as far as performance in general, I mean, my mother watched AMC every weekend. And when I say AMC, I don't mean the current AMC. I mean the old Turner Classic Movies style
Betty Davis,
AMC.
Joan Crawford,
Rosalind Russell.
Rosalind Russell.
Yeah, for me it was Auntie Mame all the way.
Yeah,
I
100%.
wanted to be her. I didn't know it then, but
Well, you have kind of that cadence.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk if you put a
Trust
little
me.
Auntie Mame in the Joker in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No. And I mean, I don't have a traditional Scranton accent because I've watched enough Rosalind Russell, but I do find that I have a little more Mid-Atlantic than maybe one should
Yes.
to make a career in 2024.
And after your House of Love cocktails, and be Judy Garland, you'd be like, oh, Sid Loft.
Do we have time for one more?
But I still love the point. You weren't doing like school plays, like the Christmas play, or you.
Oh
High
no,
School
absolutely
Musical.
did. First performance that I remember doing, I went to Catholic preschool, and I was in the
God, you had it rough.
and I was in the Christmas show, and I don't remember what the plot of this or what the song was, but I remember I was a holly boy.
Oh
A
my.
Holly boy.
There were three of us,
And they didn't know that.
yeah, no, right.
It was like the Mean Girls scene with the.
and we
with
wore
the-
like holly leaves, and I just think like we should have worn them like we should have used them like they were like feathers in in Chicago, but.
sisters.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Never wear the such devoted Holly boys. Yeah. But so I did that. I did. If anybody knows Missoula Children's Theater, that touring children's theater thing, I did that twice. That was definitely when I was, Mother, Father, I'm going to flee home one day and become an actor. Yeah. The bug bit me multiple times.
Not to get a little personal, but like while most of us are just worrying about going through puberty and to find our identity, you were also dealing and finding your identity as being adopted, because you always knew that you were adopted.
Always.
You,
Yeah.
you were adopted at 1 month old. How did that kind of play with your psyche, dealing with not just going through, like I said, the regular growing up, but then finding your identity as a queer person, but also finding your identity as being adopted?
That's a funny thing. Like my being adopted, it didn't register in my brain how much that actually was affecting me until I was in therapy in my 20s.
they're
Like, yeah, it wasn't something I really thought about, but there were little bits of like, oh, yeah. I mean, my parents were all like, they treated me like I was their biological kid. There was never that. But there were a couple relatives who shall remain nameless, but they're dead. It doesn't matter. Who would be, who would have favorites in the family or would treat me just a little bit differently. So, I register that now, but didn't really at the time. I just thought they were assholes.
They probably were. I mean, yeah. Let's conjure them up and let's ask them some questions.
Ouija board?
Yeah. Did you feel that growing up with having two moms? Like, because that was a whole different time, too.
I, to a certain degree. I mean, it was such an odd circumstance in that, I did have a mother and a father until I was 10, and Daddy went off to, to get cigarettes and never came back, as it were. And so when, the second mom, it wasn't something that I got. We weren't sat down. My sister and I were not sat down and say, "Hey, this is going to be dynamic." It just sort of happened, and we just sort of acclimated. Still not like I really didn't know what the heck was going on for the first several years of my life, and then I became a teen, and it's like, oh.
Well, it's funny because as kids we just absorb stuff and we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're told it's not right or it's not
Right.
normal, then you're just like.
And she was treated like family by everybody else, so who was I to put up a fight?
Yeah.
And you were raised in a Catholic household, but not just Catholic, Byzantine Catholic. And if anybody knows what Byzantine is, like,
It's a thing.
yeah. How did that play in later life in dealing with faith and spirituality, being a queer person? Just to dive right into your personal life.
No. I mean, it was a lot. My family was very heavily Catholic. I was pretty Catholic. I mean, I was the head altar boy at our church.
So was I in a Catholic church all my life.
I was a cantor, and then I went to the Catholic University of America for the first 2 years of college
In D.C.?
In Washington, D.C. And Yeah, I was pretty steeped in it, and I don't think, and I think I always considered myself to be one of the liberal ones, but until I went to USC for the remainder of my college career, and they were like, "Oh, you're a church lady, like, you're a pearl clutching church lady,"
And now you're just a pearl wearing.
Yeah, because you can appropriate the fashion, but you don't have to don't have to follow the faith.
I wear vestments every now and then for fun.
They are beautiful gowns, beautiful gowns. Yeah, no, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot, and it took a lot of grappling with what faith meant to me. I mean, I think I've kind of landed in sort of an agnostic point of view, and I respect spirituality, but I think religion is a complicated thing, especially when it comes to the marginalization of other people. In our case, specifically queer people. It plays a weird little role.
And I have to tell you, being head altar boy, I was head altar boy for 4 years. Telling your friends you won that award, fun, real fun. I'm head altar boy.
Looks good on your college applications.
You came to study at USC in Southern California. Was there like this cloud that just lifted when you left all the pressures behind? You were kind of on your own, and you were free to be you. Did you feel like this pressure gone?
Well, let me say this.
Yep.
I actually loved my time at Catholic U. I loved the people that I met there. I made some of the best friends that I still have today. And DC is actually a beautiful town. There was a lot of really wonderful stuff about it. I just found that my experience in their drama department at the time, as somebody who wanted to eventually go do film and TV and become famous and do voiceover, it just felt like, I think I might be able to do some really avant-garde Eastern European theater, like, after I graduate from here, but not necessarily make it in Hollywood. So I thought, now's the time to go. So, I mean, coming to LA was really scary. Yeah, I was definitely, just as I was very much a church lady, I was always also very much sort of that introverted little boy from Scranton. I chickened out of my application to NYU because I saw two squirrels fighting in Washington Square Park, and I was like, this place is brutal. Like, so, going to Los Angeles was a big deal, but luckily also met some fabulous friends there, and I'm very proud of the education that I had at both schools, because I did get that wildly Eastern European classical training, but I also got the very modern businessy contemporary training of USC. So I got a nice hodgepodge of the two.
Were you free to be your sexuality when you were young? Or?
I wasn't free to be me until I allowed myself to be free to be me, which was probably not until mid-20s, late, to my 30s. It was actually the solo show, which I know we're getting to, was really my gateway into my full acceptance of myself, let alone my parents, my friends, family, all of that. But it took a minute. There's a lot of deprogramming you have to do, with a lot of that Catholic upbringing.
That Catholic guilt is for real. Even like
still,
even like the first time like having gay sex, it's like it wasn't fun. Because you're just
why are you weeping through this? I don't know.
Should we
don't kink shame me.
Should we pray first? I mean, all of that. I want to know what your first kind of LA professional auditions were like. Do you have any horror stories?
I have so many horror stories, and some of them are actually kind of depressing. Well, one of the ones comes to mind was a commercial audition for some Mexican fast food restaurant. I don't know which one it was. Where
you seem like the perfect person.
I know, right? Hello. Where was?
I'm from Scranton. We have chimichangas.
We have fajitas. Yeah. So the prop that we had to work with was a burrito, but it was really a manila folder that they just rolled up. And so they handed it to you and they wanted you to like fake eat it, but it was the same manila folder that went to every single person.
No.
And so you could see around the edge of it.
No.
Some were a little more enthusiastic than others.
I'm like, I'm going to debase myself today for non-union money. Like, yeah. No, I had a bunch. The first thing that I did out of college was a musical review in North Hollywood where theater goes to death. No,
don't say that.
Don't say that. No.
It is a very interesting environment.
It was. Well, especially in the early 2000s. Like, I think it's different now. But it was a musical review that I did with it was produced by two very new people who had nothing to do with theater, really. And they cast my friend and I as Judas and Mary Magdalene. And I am no Ben Vereen. First of all, I don't have the vocal range. And my friend was an Indian woman who was Mary Magdalene. She's like, I don't know if I quite understand why I'm here, but okay, whatever. It's a job. It's work. And the show opened also with Magic to Do from Pippin, so that was where we got to have fun.
I could see that. Was that kind of music.
You get to wear gloves.
Yeah. God. You know who sat in your chair 2 weeks ago? Who? Yvonne Elliman, who played Mary Magdalene in the original Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh my God, royalty!
Do you know she recorded "I Don't Know How to Love Him" in one take?
Quoth Elaine Stritch, just show off, why don't you?
It took her how many hours to do Ladies Who Lunch?
know, right?
Come on, Elaine. Okay, we need to talk about your one-person show, Donna Madonna, critically acclaimed. I love the story of what inspired it, and I don't want to give it away. Can you tell us what the basis of Donna Madonna is?
Sure. Well, I mentioned I'm adopted. My mother, who adopted me, is a Italian Catholic housewife from Dunmore, Pennsylvania, very delicate and doting, and eventually meeting my birth mother, who is a fashion columnist married to a British pop star. So it was basically Donna Reed meets Madonna, Donna Madonna. And really, I wrote it kind of during a slow period in my career where I was like, I'm just going to do this thing. It was before we used the word content, and I wrote it as just sort of like, I'm going to write this love letter to the two most important women in my life and just see where it goes from there. It's more for me and for them than for anybody else. And it was just fortunate that it sort of caught on and people enjoyed it. But it really talked about how I am a product of both nature versus nurture, like kind of split down the middle. All of my neuroses belong to my mother, and all of my fabulousness belongs to my birth mom. So yeah, it's been, and in the making of it and producing it, I toured. I did it in New York and San Francisco at the Exit Theater, and my dad came to see it, and it is through seeing that show that my dad's brain finally clicked, and he was like, I get it. I know who you are. And so it was a beautiful experience. I mean, in so many ways that I never intended it to be.
Well, that's the power of theater. That's why having theater is so important.
I've never thought of it that way, the nature versus nurture, and having the balance of that in my own life. It just, as you said that, it occurred to me. I won't wax poetic about it, but the difference of influences in what made me. Very much my mother, the nature part, and perhaps I did have an aunt who showed me fine restaurants, and she would take me to see Broadway shows, and she was the one who got me the audition for The Lost Boys and Peter Pan, which I should not have been there, but she gave me that. It's wonderful to put it that way, so thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
now I'm stewing on it.
When the older I get, the more I'm turning into my mom, and I'm just like, I cannot believe this is happening, and it's happening without warning, and I'm just like, that's. But what I love is you actually went to seek out your birth mom, and you wrote her a letter, and you just poured everything out, not knowing where it was going to end up.
Yep.
What was that spark to be like, okay, now's the time, I want to find out more?
I was actually on a date. And I'd been on a few dates where, this topic came up, oh, I'm adopted, blah, 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 blah. And I was on a date with this particular individual, and I said, oh, I'm adopted, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, have you ever found your birth parents? Oh, no. And he was the first person to ask the question, well, why not?
Huh.
And I was like, I don't really. And I was, I think I had told myself sometime in, my teens that it was like, well, when I'm of age, in my 20s or something like that, maybe it'll be a good time to figure it out. And that's how old I was. And I was like, actually, I don't have a good answer to that. So maybe now's the time. And I fully expected to, I was adopted in Pennsylvania. They had a lot of privacy laws around that at the time. So I was fully expecting to hit roadblock after roadblock, have to hire an attorney, a private investigator, all sorts of stuff. And instead, I wrote to the Catholic hospital that I was adopted from, and the woman who had processed my adoption, it was 2 days before she retired when she got my phone call. Wow. And she was like, yeah, I remember you. And I remember both of your mothers. And it was like, there's all of that.
You were the baby with the blue hair.
I came out this way.
Were you prepared or emotionally prepared for maybe she didn't want to know or
Yes.
meet or
Yeah, and they actually said it. They said, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to write a letter. You're going to send it to us. We're going to pass it along to her last known address. If she gets back to you, she'll write through us, and you can correspond that way. And if that happens, amazing. If she doesn't get back to you, we recommend you take that as a sign that maybe this isn't a good match. And she did. So,
Wonderful.
and of course, we're corresponding through this liaison, writing letters back to Pennsylvania, only to realize by our third letter, like, oh, P.S., I also live in Los Angeles.
Isn't that crazy?
I know,
That
right?
is so crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
amazing.
So you created Donna Madonna. You wrote 3 one-act plays that go from children's stories.
I love
to,
that
like,
you bring this up. I was like, oh, God, that's still on my website, isn't it?
Girl, it is. And then there's this play about cancer. What is that arc?
Oh, God, yes. So in college,
You just hated children's theater that much? Or like, let's
No,
do
no, it's actually kind of sad. So a good friend of mine in high school passed away from cancer, and in college I decided to write a admittedly very masochistic, very melodramatic, like Nicholas Sparks has nothing on me level of drama. And, I wrote it. We had a great experience putting it together. A bunch of my friends who were also friends with this person came down and saw it. We wept like, breaking capillaries in our eyes, like watching this. So it was very cathartic.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it something
sure.
that I'm like, oh, I need to sell this to dramatists? Oh God, no. Like, it just exists. But it was a great experience. I'm glad we did it.
But that playwriting bug is not in you?
That's the weird thing. Like I'm so proud of what I did with Donna Madonna. I'm so proud of some of the things that I've written. I'm just so bad at being prolific. It is like pulling teeth to get me to, and I have some friends that are so gifted and they wake up in the morning and they do their morning pages. Thank you, Artist Way. And they get all that out. And for me, it is.
Don't we just hate them?
Yeah. They're awful.
Early on, you took a class with Bob Bergen, voices Porky Pig, Tweety.
Sure does.
This was in your early time of getting into voice work.
Yep.
What did he teach you most that you still subscribe to this day as a voice actor?
Honestly, I think Bob just taught me to believe in myself. I think so much I was actually just talking about this, that Bob was one of the first people that I was a professional voice actor that heard what I could do and was like, you can do this. And it was that sort of validation that was like, oh, I'm not just somebody that's like doing funny voices and, my family and friends are humoring me. And, this was a peer who was telling me, you've got it. I want you to keep going in this. So it was really that. I mean, honestly, this is maybe a humble brag, but like, I didn't learn too much in animation classes. I'd been impersonating animation all my life. It was really what I did. It's when they were like, by the way, you probably should also learn how to do commercial reads. And then I took those classes and was like, oh, I'm crap at these. I don't know how to sell anything. I mean, almost every commercial that I've booked to this day has been because they had like a weird little charactery thing in it, not because I was, the voice of Lexus or something. No, it's not working. But yeah, it was, and honestly, isn't that what every teacher should be providing their students, especially in the arts, is just validation of like, you've got it. You have the confidence to do your work. Yeah.
How did your screen work kind of transition to just voice work? Like, I joke, but you were the singing telegram on Real Housewives of Hollywood.
I know, and it should have made me a
laugh.
star.
You had scenes with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like, come on.
I did. She was lovely.
Is that something you just weren't enamored by anymore, or that so much voice work was just coming your way that you're just like, oh, this.
Well,
this
I'm
is my...
sure you can tell since you know both of those roles, there's a type happening there.
A big type, and in fact, it's a little cringy looking back.
Yeah.
It was like Jack McFarlane times 10, but not given any other
Yeah.
kind of basis.
I mean, I was playing Pinkface. I know that. And every audition that I went to was either expecting that, or as soon as I walked in the room, they looked at me like, oh no, you're wrong for this. I can't tell you how many Doritos or Slim Jim or Budweiser commercials I went to and swished my way into the door. Not intentionally.
Yeah.
It's just the way I walk. And they're like, oh God, so, but meanwhile, my voice work, while my body I've never been terribly good with, my voice, I've always been able to do different things with and code switch and do all kinds of things. I still remember being in college And I had improv friends, and then I had, like, you know, my fabulous friends that I hung around with. And we were hanging out in the mall, back when people hung out in malls.
I miss those days.
Right.
Orange Julius.
God, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop. Oh, my
Hot dog
God.
on a stick, and then you'd see a movie and go to the arcade.
I'm
Yeah.
weeping.
Smelling Cinnabon right now.
Yeah.
I go to Spencer's Gifts, remember?
Yeah.
KB
we were
Toys.
We were at
Sorry.
the Gap. Oh, God. So many,
that is
so many memories. We were at the Gap, and we were just like, oh, hey, girl, blah, 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 blah. And then one of my improv pals walked in, and I was like, hello, sir. How are you doing? Blah, you know, and then they walked out, and they were like, what the hell was that? You just became an entirely different person for a second there. I'm like, oh, you know, he doesn't want me to be that. He wants me to. It's like, why does it matter what he wants? Why can't you? You know. So that was therapy. Plus knowing like, oh, okay, so I have the ability to do all of this switching. And what I loved about voiceover was that I did have that ability, and I was, you know, while I was auditioning for so many swishy characters, I was playing an undead rocker werewolf from Australia, and people were like, sure, why not? And I loved that. So, I mean, when you're a struggling actor who only has so many dollars that you can put towards your career, you know, and I was sort of making the choice of like, okay, is this going to go towards an on-camera workshop or my voiceover demo? Like, more and more money started spilling towards voiceover because I was just enjoying it more, and it didn't feel so pressured. And then, you know, slowly but surely, until my my manager one day was like, "Are you still doing on camera?" I'm like, you know what? I don't think I am. I gotta go.
Do you find it to be an insular business? Because I've always been not really under the impression, but that they tend to use the same
Voiceover,
people.
you mean?
Yeah, like breaking
Oh,
into
sure. Well,
breaking into it's difficult, and you know. I have a voice demo, and it's, you know, on my Actors Access, whatever, but it's not something I professionally did. But the pressure of having to have all the equipment at home, you know, a sound room, and this and this and this and this.
well, that's a pandemic thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, most of the people I knew, we would all go into our agent's office and we would sit in it like a doctor's waiting room and go one at a time into the booth and record. I miss those days because I loved that social aspect.
Yeah.
But then the pandemic hit, and all of us got the equipment to record from home. So that has changed quite a bit, but only fairly recently. But it is kind of insular in the sense that, you know, in an on-camera show, you need a different actor for every person, whether they're the lead or they're the waiter. Like, you know, everybody has to be played by somebody else. With us, you know, they get two voices from us for the same price. And the third voice is only an added 10%. So really, of course, they're going to add a few other characters. Plus, we also do all the walla and all the pick a little, talk a little in the background, you know.
Yeah.
So just by nature of that, it's going to be
I see.
smaller. It's going to be tighter. But I do think, you know, with just so much content that's around, and also with the ability of people to record from anywhere now, there is a lot more opportunity. It's just, you know.
And
getting
advancements in technology. You can buy a good microphone for $100, $200.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas before it was like, no, we need to build a whole studio. Not anymore.
Yep.
JP, what are the vocal fundamentals of creating a character? Like, what vocally needs to happen?
Oh, geez. Well, first we warm up. No,
Moses supposes.
I mean, it's red leather, yellow leather. Most of the roles that I've played have been legacy characters.
Yeah.
So for me, so much of it has been getting a sense from production, how much of the original do you actually want, and how much of it do I have room to play? So that's been a lot of it for me. For so much of my work has been degrees of impersonation. I mean, with Boss Baby, they wanted dead on. They wanted an exact. When I did Wile E. Coyote, because most people know him as silent with just holding a sign, yes, Mel Blanc did him, but you know, I had a little more wiggle room as to what I could bring to it.
That must have been fun. I mean, what an iconic character.
Oh yeah, no, an absolute blast. Everybody said that my Wile E. Coyote wasn't really Wile E. Coyote, who was more Sideshow Bob, and I'm like, that's a compliment. I'll take it. I mean,
He's evolved.
to me, they're more or less the same. So sure, yeah. Yeah, so a lot of it is just finding the nuance. And when it's an original character, which I actually love, I mean, the opportunity to voice an original character is great. It's going through that toolbox of what are the repertoire of voices that I have available, and how can I turn dials on them in certain ways to sort of, you know, fit them into the shape of what this character wants to be. Yeah, it's a lot of, I think of it as whittling. A lot of it is just like taking a log and just whittling it down until it's going to fit right into the slot that it's supposed to.
Have you ever come in with a conceived notion of what you want to do, and then production's just like, no?
Oh yeah, Plenty.
No, none of that.
Yeah.
We don't want any of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's something I teach as well, and something I tell my students is, having an awareness of the quote unquote dials that you can turn on your voice, make those adjustments when they're like, I don't think it's exactly that. Do you have something else? You can just quickly be like, okay, I'm going to drop the pitch. I'm going to add some texture. I'm going to make them Southern, and I'm going to give them a lisp, and then
Your
suddenly,
own
yeah.
vocalizer,
Yeah.
equalizer.
Yeah.
When do you know as an artist that it's just not working? Like for yourself, before you even bring it
I was
in.
gonna say, the character or the career?
Yes. No. But we all try things, and in the actors, in our classes and stuff, we all try stuff, and sometimes it's just like, this is not working. Like, at what point do you be like, you know what, I need to scrap this, and I need to just start over?
I mean, I think you can feel it. I think if you have a good sense of comedy, which is why I think that every actor, I don't care what your medium is, should take improv and at least try stand up once. I tried it once; it's not my thing, but I'm glad I took the class and I tried it. So you have an awareness of when the joke is going to land. You know it, you intuit it, and I think having that awareness really helps build up your timing and also be able to start getting across. Is this working? Is this? No, I'm going to do something else. So yeah.
All right, you say that you are a nerd. What?
I do. I founded an organization that proves it.
Which we are definitely going to talk about. But before coming to the X-Men franchise, what was your nerdum? What was your geek environment? Are you like a video gamer, a Star Trek? What was your nerd? Like Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh Lord, there's a bunch, but well, I do tell the story when people are like, "Were you a big fan of the X-Men series when it came out?" No, and here's why. It was on Fox Kids in the afternoon, so by the time I got home from school, I would turn on the TV, and X-Men was rolling their end credits so that I could watch the Power Rangers, which I was absolutely a fan of.
Okay.
I mean, Power
It's
Rangers.
the tight outfits.
Exactly. Like it was hitting all the right buttons at the right time.
Pageantry.
Yeah. No, there was, cute boys in tight outfits. There was, incredibly overdramatic villainesses. There was, there's lots of spangles and sparks, and there's just so many things going on that were just like, yes, all of this, plus like Transformers in the middle of it. Like, yes, all of it.
I remember.
No, I was a big fan of that. I still am. I mean, my husband's like, "What are you reading?" "Oh, just some Power Rangers comics. Leave me alone." Yeah, so that was my nerddom. Big Star Wars fan. I was a big fan of the Wizard property that shall no longer be named because of herself who wrote it.
Which is now getting a TV series, by the way. Yep.
Yeah, those were my biggies. I was definitely somebody who read Star Wars novels at the cafeteria table in high school. Like
I was that nerd, but mine were Star Trek.
Star Trek. Yeah.
There's no accounting for.
Well, now that I've played a Vulcan, I now have some, Star Trek actual knowledge.
And you've done Star Wars too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Okay, moment we've all been waiting for. Have your X-Men questions. You've talked in interviews like you really got exposed to X-Men through the movies, like
Yep.
like a lot of us did. You get cast as Morph, and I hope I'm not insulting anybody from the Marvel world. To me, it reminds me so much of soap operas. I used to watch soap operas with my mom so much that from episode
Playing
to episode,
Alexis Carrington today is
But even in terms of the characters, there's so many iterations of a character that goes on for decades. And people have changed genders. People have changed their sexuality. People have changed their look. They've changed their powers. You get a character like Morph, how do you even begin to do research on this type of character? Because there's so much lore out there. And then there's the pressure. We know how fans can be.
Yes.
Like, you got to know your shit, especially if you're going to be doing the convention route. Where does one start their research?
I mean, for me, I was really just fixated on what happened in the show. Because, the show was the Bible. We knew that the show was a direct continuation. It didn't really... I didn't feel like I needed to go diving into other sources at that moment.
Like
it was
fan fiction of Morph.
Yeah, I think we're okay. And I think what I found so fascinating about Morph, in the 8 episodes he was in, first of all, it was easy research. He's not in a whole ton of the original series. But when you watch all of his episodes back to back, it's a tragic arc. I mean, he's a happy-go-lucky guy who gets sort of killed and then brought back by an evil person who takes over his mind, but helps him betray his friends, and then he has to go to basically rehab for the rest of the series. Like,
it's a WeHo story.
But truly. And that's what I love so much about it, is that Morph is very, even though we never called him a queer character back then, he absolutely fits so much of a queer archetype, even on top of the allegorical queerness that the X-Men are.
And the show is basically most of what you had to go on, because the character of Morph is not really part of the original X-Men lore.
He was created to die.
Yeah,
really.
Well, he became a character in a comic called The Exiles. That was sort of in the Age of Apocalypse and stuff, and so it was this sort of retroactive character. So, him having the arc he did in the show was, I think, the most, formidable chunk of stuff to even build a character on.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a show that takes place in 97. And then we're talking about a term non-binary, which we know that term was not out. And I know you personally, you came into your gender queerness fluidity later in life.
Yep.
So in meshing that two together, we're dealing with a franchise that has been on for decades, but in this particular, we're dealing with a non-binary character in 97, which we didn't have the language then. You didn't always have the language. Now you do. Now you are further on your identity journey, so to speak. So meshing those two, what was most important as an actor, as the character, and as a queer person, what was most important in creating this iteration of Morph?
I think so much of it was because, just as you've described, so there were so many parallels. It was important to me not to do a character voice. I didn't want to try to, they weren't super explicit about how much like Ron Rudin it had to sound. They were pretty, you can fudge it a little bit, but the laugh had to be there. They wanted the giggle. Yeah.
Do you do that in the bedroom? Be honest.
And then I'm immediately alone.
It's a whole nother show.
If I want to clear the room. But so I had some wiggle room, and for me, it was all about, I just want to ground him in my voice. He's just going to sound like me. And because for me, I was just telling an iteration of my own story. And also, Morph, first of all, he is a gray head. He turns into all of these other different people. Morph's got a lot of fantastic going along. I didn't need to layer on some really charactery voice to tell it any further. It's like, we've got it. It's
like what you said, like Chanel said, always take one thing off before you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they never say in the show. I think maybe that's a fan-generated sort of controversy that they never say in the show. It's never mentioned, his gender fluidity.
No, but of course not.
And it's never defined as to what he actually is. He's just this amorphous sort of, being who can turn into pretty much anything.
Yeah.
But are we going to hear more of that, though, this version? Are we going to hear more about him?
Do you mean like, are we in the show?
Yeah.
No. And I'm that's not a spoiler in that, but just like, the terminology didn't exist. And for Morph to know that he's, that he is genderqueer or, it doesn't really play. I hope at some point, I'm trying to actually think of this, no, I don't. No, I'm not spoiling anything. I hope at some point that we actually
have some more
things. I hope at some point we get to delve into whether or not Morph has a sexual attraction or a romantic attraction to other people. He might be ace. I don't know. He might be aromantic.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know that. I'm interested. Since there's so many attractions with so many other people in the show. I'd like to see what his is.
It just makes sense, and we know now. Nobody sticks with anything. It's just like everybody's
It's like Grey's Anatomy. Everybody's just in every operating room.
But what I liked the scene where Wolverine is like sitting up in the tree, and Morph morphs into I don't know what character, but like with the beer
with Sabretooth.
With Sabretooth, and then they're like wrestling, and they're gonna share some beers. Like I love that energy to it. It's
love it too.
That's part of being gender fluid too, or non-binary.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and also yes, we can all speculate about whether Morph has a crush on Wolverine or what's going on there, but I also love the idea of it does happen that there are gay guys and straight guys who have a friendship and
They have a bromance.
Yeah, and that's all it is.
But it's interesting. you could go so many different ways with this. Like if Morph wanted to attract Wolverine in a certain way, to morph into whatever Wolverine's like ideal.
Well, I mean, we saw it in the movies when Mystique was trying to was turning into like 7 other people in front of Wolverine to try to get his attention, and Morph has already turned into Jean Grey to taunt Wolverine.
100%.
A hilarious scene, by the way. I totally
A pregnant one, by
yes
the
and
way.
snapped
Yes.
up. I was like, that was so catty and sassy.
That's one of the I love so much that because he's a shapeshifter, Morph. So many people get to play Morph, and I said to Jen Hale after the screening, I was like, "Girl, you got me so bad!" Like just that sassy sort of direction. It was great. It was really awesome.
And to me, it took me to like a West Hollywood club, that whole club scene. And it's like we try to morph into, am I going to fit in with the twinks? Am I in the bear section? Like what section? I mean, we do that at a club without knowing it, having to change our whole identity. But the fans do know about the classification of Morph as non-binary. And I was going to ask, we all know X-Men is such an allegory for any minority group, anybody that's ever felt persecuted. The first episode sets it up so well. It's just beautifully said and succinct. It's not like they have to hit you over the head. Like, we get it. These ultimate fans of X-Men, and this is the unfortunate part, still took to the chat boards, all the messages, and they took umbrage to Morph even having to say or be established as a non-binary character. Why, if they're such fans, is there such an issue?
I mean, maybe this is the hot take, but I don't think they're really fans. If you have any understanding of where the X-Men came from, their roots in the civil rights movement, then you can't say that you're and also their roots in the gay rights movement. Like they have been an allegory for queer rights this whole time. So to suddenly say, "Oh, this is not X-Men," it's trolling.
Trolls just have to troll. I mean, I'm in a few Facebook sort of geek pages or whatever, and there's a loving groups, and everybody's just having fun with it and sharing their ideas, and then inevitably you get somebody who comes in and says something trashy and trollish like that, and immediately by their words you were not a fan.
Yeah.
And it happens with every fandom. I mean, it even happens with Drag Race. We have people coming out of the woodwork.
I love how you say even as if Drag Race is woo.
Well, no, because we assume Drag Race, we're all in the same community. We're all on the same page. We want to promote equality. We want to promote drag queens. And it's like, okay, but these keyboard warriors will tear people down. To the point where some drag queens have felt suicidal. Some people have deleted their whole social media.
Yeah. I mean, it was Brita Filter that really brought that to my attention of just like, wow, how bad this is.
And when they do troll, it's like case in point. You're now coming in to persecute people who, you're doing the exact thing that you
Just want to buy everybody a copy of The Velvet Rage and just be like, I need you to read this tome. This is good for you.
I want to talk. You talked about you recorded the show from the comfort of your home.
I did.
And everybody was kind of like in a Zoom-like environment, or how do you build the chemistry? There's obviously chemistry right off the bat with the cast, because even somebody that's not in this world instantly am like in it with all the different energies. How do you build that camaraderie? I mean, I know you guys are all consummate voice actors, but still.
Well, I think part of it, the job of a voice actor is to create the entire world in your head. The setting, the distance between the person you're talking to, the props, the costumes, like everything you have to create in your mind. But I really think it's more of a testament to the director. Like, our director is Meredith Lane, who is also the voice session director of Arcane, Castlevania, Blood of Zeus. I mean, really some prestige. Marvel's What If, another incredible Marvel show.
Love that show.
So yeah, she's really become like a director of prestige adult animation. So Meredith is just really superior about setting the stage for what you need to be accomplishing in the scene, even if it is just, all by yourself and just isolated lines and with so much other things going on, especially in an action scene, setting the scene for, okay, this is the part where Rogue's going to like bat, a sentinel head at you and you need to, duck and cover from it. So I want this kind of noise. She's really good at that. Yeah, I'm so in awe of the way that she directs.
We talked about the fans. We talked about how there can be some very loyal and loving fans, but there can also be those crazy fans. You're going to be heading off into the convention circuit with, more than 4 million views in the first 5 days. Fans have already come out of the woodwork. Do you have any crazy, scary funny fan interactions so far?
I haven't. I've been fortunate in that. All of the fans that I've run into have been really, really nice.
Not yet. I'm sitting here. Wait a I brought you.
Oh my God!
I did. His cape is at the laundry.
Now that's Changeling, right?
No, that's
that-
more
oh, that
from
is- oh, okay.
Age of Apocalypse.
Oh, okay.
Without his
Yes,
cape.
yes, yes.
But anyway.
Right.
Why is his crotch worn down?
Wow.
It's been rubbed once.
Isn't this a family?
Good night, everybody.
Isn't this a family show?
No.
But I will say the one thing that does freak me out a little bit. This did not happen to me, but there was, every once in a, I mean, this has happened to multiple people. Every once in a while, you get that fan who's like, "Can you sign a part of my body?" And then they come back like that afternoon, having had it tattooed.
That's so weird.
It freaks me out. I cannot with that. I literally get like flop sweats thinking about that. So I don't want that. But by and large, everybody else has been pretty lovely. I mean, I haven't done very much of the con circuit, mostly because before this, almost every property I did, the fan base was between the ages of 5 and 8. So, they weren't like
Like doing kids'
spending money
parties.
at cons. Like, it was.
You're doing kids parties in North Hollywood.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was occasionally doing Cameo. That was kind of about it. So, yeah, I'm but who knows? Now that I'm diving in, we'll see what we get.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the next project that comes out like a week after is The Joker. How does one even say, yes, I'm going to do that character? And, I love this picture, by the way.
I have experience, clearly.
These are your
I've
Jokers.
trained.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you know what's funny? The one on the left, I did Joker like that. My mom made me the costume that looks exactly like that. And my makeup was horrible. Yours is good. Mine was like melting off before I even got to school. It was awful, but this brings back memories.
Well, we had powder.
Of course you did.
Well, weren't you also in the Killing Joke with Mark Hamill being the Joker?
Yep. Yeah, I played the gay best friend.
Love it.
So saying yes to this character, I mean,
Pressure?
a lot of pressure. And again, where do you begin with a character like this?
I mean,
And there's so many people from so many different walks of life that have done it.
yeah,
well.
no, and incredible performances. I mean, everybody from Jack Nicholson to Cesar Romero to Heath Ledger to Mark Hamill,
Yeah.
who's, in my estimation, the best.
And now it's come full circle because Cesar Romero, we know, it's a boop, boop.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's plenty to pull from. And I think where the freedom lies in this version of the Joker is he's an Elseworlds Joker. So he's one we've never seen before. He's a brand new iteration. They were really specific that they didn't want him to sound like Mark, especially because this game is set in the Arkham universe where Mark Hamill's Joker was the Joker of that world. He, was in several games and then he died at the end of the last one. So he left an indelible mark. So for me to come in and be like, I'm him, like, no. So it was really nice to be able to cut a new path with him. And what I love about this Joker as well is he's entering this other world where there was such a magnanimous Joker, if you want to call him magnanimous, a very impressionable, a living large Joker. And he's kind of, as a younger Joker who's sort of figuring out his thing, he's sort of like taking notes like, oh, okay, laughing gas, cool, like figuring it out. So it was nice to have that freedom. And then, this is another character where I'm not straying too far from my own voice. I'm not doing the full Mark Hamill or anything like that. But the laugh, I get to play with a little bit. Like, it gets to be all sorts of things. So it's a little bit of Mark, it's a little bit of Heath. It's, I'm sort of playing around.
Walk us through some of the vocal placement that you're using for the Joker.
For the laugh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so what I love about Mark Hamill, talks about this in an interview, is his Joker has like 30 different laughs, and it kind of depends upon what the situation. So there's the, which is these, the sinister beginning, but then there's the over the top, which is me just impersonating my grandmother, if I'm being honest. So yeah, so it's finding all of those things. Heath Ledger is more of the. So finding what is the situation? What does it need? Where do you pepper that in? Even the Cesar Romero, like just that sort of like shocked that he's so giddy sort of.
He made that same sound at the bathhouses too, by the way.
I mean,
I'm not wrong.
no comment.
That flower sure was squirting.
Yeah.
I also have to give mad respect to any Joker who kept his mustache on, even while he was painted as the Joker.
Right? He's like, fuck this. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not shaving.
Yeah. Mad.
I have a nightclub act. Yeah.
I have a date at 6. What voice that you've done has been the biggest challenge or taught you the most about yourself?
Oh, God. Those are kind of two different things. Biggest challenge, Boss Baby. Partially because of the placement of the voice. That is hard to keep up for 4 hours. But also just because of the speed, the timing, the amount of dialogue, the maturity of the dialogue, despite being a baby. Like, there was just it was like doing the Gilmore Girls every day. You know, he talks so fast.
Rosalind Russell, that was her pattern.
Oh, hey.
Yep.
Yeah, I learned it from watching her. So that was a challenge, doing him. But as far as like learning the most about myself, it's Morph for sure. And you know, because I do feel that there is that mirroring of seeing the things that he's I mean, what I love so much about this Morph, where we see him now in this series, is the Morph who's been through all this trauma and is now healing and trying to find joy in life again, and is sort of has a confidence in himself. And I feel like, I'm like 6th season X-Men Morph, you know, like it's standing in my position of joy and confidence.
And I love how they're using him as to pay a lot of fan service, because you know, just in the first episode or second, I can't recall, but he morphs into several, you know, Psylocke, Blob, Lady Deathstrike, yeah. And it's like, you know, and each time as a diehard fan, you see one of those, you're just like, you know, each and every time, and and I can imagine that it's going to be more and more.
There might be.
Maybe. I'll be watching at midnight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. What celebrity would you morph into for a day?
That I'd morph into for a day. Well, Roz Russell would be weird. She's been gone for quite some time. That would be
But still.
Yeah. God, whose shoes would I step into for a minute?
There's so many different ways that you could go.
I mean, you could interpret this so many different ways. I mean, I guess I'm going to go. So the celebrity that I want to meet more than anybody in the world, I think it's an odd answer, but I love her so much. I love Emma Thompson more than life itself. I adore her. She is so funny. She's so quick.
Her interviews on Graham Norton, she's hilarious.
Yes. Oh my God. Like everything she does. Like when she did like the Hollywood Reporter roundtable, and she just dominated the whole thing because she's so funny. So I love her. Close second would be Olivia Colman, but I just love witty British women. But so getting to sort of stew in that mind, and you know, and feel and get a sense of where that humor comes from, and feel that wit percolating. Like I really like that. I'd rather meet her, but if I, you know, it'd be nice to just sit in her brain.
Like, what would you do as Emma Thompson all day?
Oh, well, I'd go to Sainsbury's. No, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd call up Kate Winslet and be like, what if we did a sequel to Sense and Sensibility? Like,
Let's do a reboot of Thelma and Louise. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I want to do Nanny McPhee action movie. Like, you know.
That's very cultured. Mine would be like, I'd be Channing Tatum and be on Grindr all day. Like,
Yeah, right. And just stare at myself in the mirror.
Yeah, I'd be like, look at it. All right, let's talk about some of your activism. Queer Vox is an organization, a nonprofit that you founded. It trains and supports LGBTQ plus voiceover actors. Simply put, you're fighting for representation of queer actors playing queer characters.
Yeah. And also, on top of that, being able to create long-lasting careers, which necessitates getting to play mainstream, i.e. cis-straight, roles as well. Just as we've trusted our cis-straight colleagues to play us for so many years, we should be able to play them. After all, we did grow up in their world.
But
absolutely.
Answer me this: how big of an issue is it? Because you're told to send in a tape, and they're just hearing your voice. So it's not like if you switched in and did Slim Jim, like I wouldn't know.
Sure. Well, there's a few things. One, you know, even though the industry does have a blindness to it because we are just sending in voice tapes, people do get to know each other. People do know who people are. Like, people are looking on Instagrams and looking at your websites and getting to know. And there are certain preconceptions that come with it. I mean, I know somebody who is doing, the young hero, the young male hero in anime for a number of different things, transitioned, and then they were like, oh, yeah, you don't fit the bill anymore. And it's like, well, a trans woman the hormones don't affect their vocal quality at all. I mean, any vocal change they make is voluntary. They do it themselves. So it was really about like, okay, so this isn't about that I can't vocally play this role anymore. It's that you don't want me to play this role anymore. So that's part of it. But then there's also encouraging people to blow out their expectations a little bit about what it means to be male or female. I mean, one of the big examples, there's a lot of military games out there that for some reason the entire army has just gruff, like, get down, grenade, like,
Oh my.
Oh
my.
I mean, good times if you want to steam up the room, but like, as any actual veteran will tell you, not everybody in the armed services sounds like that. They sound like like if you got a room of any average Americans together, high pitches, low pitches, everything. So really encouraging people to open themselves up to surprise and discovery in the casting process. That's like, you know what? You're not the stereotypical Superman, but there is something about your performance, the confidence that you bring into this performance, the energy that feels like a Superman, even if you don't have the sort of cadence of, Superman.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Because I think the last thing I want is to push for authenticity of casting, and it be that flash-in-the-pan diversity du jour, and everybody gets to play a couple roles, and then all of a sudden it's the fad that dies out, and then these people are left like, I thought this was my job. I thought this was a living. And, so instead being like, okay, yes, when there are authentic possibilities, we want to push these people towards them. But we also want to create long-lasting careers so that when you do need them, they're available because they're still doing it. It's not that they're working a day job.
And I think audiences are asking for more reality. So not just that one surface. We want to see the diversity that we see in real life, especially the younger generation, because they have this non-binary language. They don't have the same restrictions. It's like, so why shouldn't that be it?
Right.
I mean, we know that the comic world and the gaming world has changed leaps and bounds. I mean, it still has a long way to go, but we know LGBTQ representation has increased so much. GLAAD has even established a whole wing just for gaming, to be consultants on gaming, which is huge because we didn't have that 10 years ago.
And isn't one of the priorities of casting is finding somebody who, what do they bring to the role specifically? You can have 100 people read for a role and they can all be great, but it's, it can all be reflections of each other. Yeah. But it's who brings their authenticity to the.
And to be fair, it's not all on casting because, I mean, anybody who's ever worked in casting knows that the budget, the timeline, it's all super tight. It's all really, it's all really difficult. So sometimes leaning on archetypes is just the faster way to go to get the job done. So it's really up to the entire pipeline of development, from the executives and producers all the way down to allow for that space, that breath to be able to find the right person. So we don't have to lean on, tropes, and we can look at more like, wait a minute, this character is specifically this, and I think that's the right person, even though it wasn't the gender maybe or identity that we originally thought of when we wrote it.
Have you had any pushback from the industry as a whole for starting an organization like Queer Vox?
No. I think the only thing that we run into occasionally is when we push back specifically on the ways a company or a casting website or a casting office or something has a particular way of doing things that they've done for a long time, and we're like, actually, it needs to be this. There can be the reticence in the in the slow uptake of okay, or some resistance in there, and I do find there's a lot of people who are progressive, who want to do right by everybody, who have been doing right by women for so long that they get really nervous about treading into, well, I don't want to disenfranchise women from getting their share of the pie. And I think that that's a scarcity mindset. And truly, like we say, freedom for one is freedom for all. So, we want to create that landscape where it's like we're not talking about, hey, we're coming in as queer people to take away roles from women or other underrepresented groups. We're trying to create a landscape where all of us are getting representation or are at least being considered for roles. And that's another thing. I really vie less for you need to be putting a trans person in that role. It's more about you need to have auditioned trans people for that role.
I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
And we know what Hollywood mainstream, we still love when Stanley Tucci, plays a gay guy.
I mean,
but then we hate when other people play. It's like, well, there's just this like disparity.
Yeah.
What we get angry about, what we don't get angry about, what we let pass, and what we don't let pass.
Exactly. I mean, as I say to people, it's not really about the art. We all have a queer performance or a queer character we've seen played by a cis or straight person who we've loved. I mean, Stanley Tucci, yes. I always think of Bill Hader in The Skeleton Twins. I
Great performance.
Love him in that.
Kevin Kline in and Out.
There's so many. But it's really not, I mean, there's no question, yeah, if you're a good enough actor, you can tap into anything. But it's not about your talent. It's about the business. It's about, are we creating job opportunities that queer people can get paid money to tell their own stories, or are you excluding them from the ability to tell their own stories? That's the thing. If we all had equal representation, who cares? Play whatever you want.
100%. And I've seen plenty of bad gay actors. I don't care if they're playing gay or if they're playing straight. They're bad. But because we're supposed to love them just because they're gay. No, I don't buy that either.
Which is part of the reason that we offer training as well, because I think what else can be detrimental is, casting to check a diversity box. They want a very, very narrow band of human who has a ton of identities. They're not an actor. They get cast in the role. They're not trained. They can't do it well. And then it's like, well, we tried.
Yeah. And they give everybody else a bad name. It's like, oh, God,
Yeah.
Okay, another organization you're with, Nerds Vote. We know why important Nerds Vote is, especially this coming election, but it's a non-bipartisan group, which I think is also very important. But it's really just to get the geeks and the nerds to vote and encourage other people to vote. There you are in your Nerds Vote shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Just a casual day at home in pink.
I love that. Every election, every time. As I say to some people that I know who get very emphatic around a presidential election, they become very progressive around a presidential election. And, whether I'm progressive or not, it doesn't matter. But you have to be involved from the grassroots up, from local elections, from, state, like all of it. If you want, a president to reflect your ideas, then it has to start down here and build.
I mean, we've
build
seen what's
up.
happened, especially this last year. And we know the president supports LGBTQ community, but look what's happened. And that's because, to your point, we need to own it at every single level of every single part of government.
Yeah.
If there's
for
school
sure.
board elections, then you need to.
Because those are the people that affect your daily life more than the president, more than the Senate. And also, there's so many people that come out in a presidential election. They're like, I don't like either party. I want to vote third party. It's like, did you spend the time in the smaller elections developing third party candidates so that we can get a third party presidential candidate that the entire country takes seriously? It takes a long game grassroots effort to really build that support. Otherwise, it's like, well, I want this guy. Well, unless he's a billionaire like Ross Perot was, he's not going to get much airtime.
Yeah, 100%. When did this kind of activism first click for you as a queer person? When you realized, oh, I can't just say queer activist things. I have to get involved. When did that change for you?
I mean, I think so. Nerds Vote came first, and I will blame a lot of my involvement in that in my friend Courtney Taylor, my co-founder, in just dragging me by the hair into it and being like, "You're doing this with me." I mean, I always had sort of an activist bug, but I think I needed an opportunity. I needed somebody to be like, here's the thing that we're going to work on and the opportunity. But after working with Courtney for a minute, and simultaneously, I mean, it was during the pandemic that Queer Vox was started. I was like many people who had a time to slow down, breathe, look at themselves and be like, wait a minute, I might not be the person that I thought I was. What are the words that I can use to describe me? I was in the place of, a little bit of gender dysphoria, wondering, how I fit. had been talking to casting directors who were simultaneously celebrating the rise of queer characters, but bemoaning, like, I don't know where to find them, the actors to play them. And I saw the window of an opportunity for me to not only create an organization to help queer actors, but also selfishly to help myself realize who I was, because I don't have a ton of queer friends, honestly. And it was really nice to be able to become involved in this big community of gender nonconforming people and hear the terminology and hear what their struggles are and hear what their successes are and hear just how they move through life and be like, and see where that's me. I understand that resonates with what I'm doing. Now I have words to describe myself. Thank you. So it's fairly, I mean, so I recycle, but like my activism is really crept up in just the past 10 years.
Good. I think it's a good inspiration because it's never too late to get involved, and now it's kind of imperative.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you kind of recently got married.
I did.
Recently.
Thank you.
How do you maintain a healthy relationship when you work from home?
I keep him locked in the closet.
And then when you are busy with the project, you're in your head, you're creating your characters, you're probably walking around the house doing voices, and now you're going to embark on conventions, and you've been enjoying a lot of press lately. That all takes its emotional and physical toll on you. How do you maintain a healthy relationship?
I mean, I think so much of it is communication. I mean, Scott and I, former Broadway actor Scott Barnhart.
What did he do on Broadway?
Scott Barnhart was in the Deaf West Broadway cast of Big River, as well
That was a huge hit.
as well as the original cast of Book of Mormon.
Oh.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that what turned you on? Do you make him wear the Mormon outfit to bed? As a Byzantine Catholic, you're like, we got him!
One of us is right. No.
Who's going to bottom tonight? Take out your Bible.
Lord. No, I will say, though, when we first met at a play reading, and when you're a person of talent, there is that weird thing of dating another person of talent where it's like, God, I hope I get to see their talent sooner than later because I don't want to have to break up with them after date 10 when I find out they're horrible.
Or they invite you to the one-person show, and it's like in the lobby of some...
As somebody who's done a one-person show, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad out there. That's the worst.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. So meeting at a play reading and hearing each other act just like, oh, phew, okay. We're both okay. We both got this. No, but Scott is he's a great communicator, and he has made me a better communicator in that sense. And I think what has made our relationship really work so well is that when things are stressful or there is something that's like, oh, this is new. I mean, this whole press thing is very new. Yeah. We don't do this a lot in voiceover. There is that, and I think our ability to communicate, like, what do you need? How are you? How can I? Or you haven't been around. I need some emotional support or whatever it is. We have the language to be able to talk about that. So, not to mention he's hilarious, so that helps. Yeah.
Well, this has been such a joy to get to know you as a person. It's been a joy to follow you on social media. Thank you for the activism that you do for the community.
Thank you.
What is your message to your fans?
Eat your Wheaties. No.
Do they still make Wheaties?
They do.
They do?
They do.
I haven't been to a grocery store in like 20 years.
They have sports people still on the front. I think my message to my fans is, it seems basic, but it really is: be kind. Just there's nothing about this show is life or death. Nothing about any show, game, program is life or death. It really is just.
That's heresy to some people.
I know. I mean, because for some people it is their everything. But, I encourage everybody, when you get into your feelings about whether it is X-Men or Suicide Squad or Drag Race or whatever it is, go outside and touch grass. And I mean it. The sun. And really just, if you're that upset, honestly, if you are that upset about Drag Race or the game or whatever it is, it's not about the game. It's not about Drag Race. It's about something going on. Look at what that is. Look at what that is and address that, and you will be a happier human being. Because the rage that you direct at us, I mean, yeah, we can handle it, but we'd rather not. Yeah. So we'd rather we want to be the thing where you come home and you can take a deep breath and relax and decompress from the day, not the thing that stirs you up and makes you even more infuriated. So let's all just take a breath together.
That was really well said. As somebody that gets upset about some Star Trek TV iterations, now I'm just like, okay, let it be.
Anthony Rapp, how dare you?
Like you
sorry.
were going to the ASMR there. Does it?
Yeah.
No.
I'd give anything for Star Trek ASMR.
What would the sounds be?
That's my bridge sound.
Just tribbles.
Yeah.
Just a lot of tribble noise.
When I cannot sleep, I turn on the 8-hour YouTube of the Warp Core engine. Which is like,
It is a
That's
very
it.
soothing noise.
It
That
is.
is a very soothing
You can do the night shift
Wait,
on the
there's
Enterprise.
8 hours of warp
8 hours.
cores?
There's also 8 hours of the evening shift on the Enterprise, and every now and then you hear like a command. I don't know where, but it's mostly just like little low hum and like little beep, beep, beep. It's so soothing until you're like, get out of my chair or something like that. It's like, what? Do you have any last?
No, there's just been such a joy.
That has really been a joy.
The geek and the child in me is thrilled, and I'm so happy to meet you. And yeah,
And to know your life
Keep
story,
doing
what a
it.
colorful story that you have.
Hey.
I hope there's a Donna Madonna
Life is a
part 2
banquet.
sometime. Yep.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Okay. All right.
I got to meet Morph.
Also, if you want to read more of an in-depth chat with me and JP, he's going to be coming out in the April-May issue of Metrosource magazine on newsstands on April 1st, on the newsstands nationwide, or you can go to metrosource.com. Where can we find and follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at JP Karliak. You can find Queer Vox at Queer Vox Academy on X or Instagram. And you can find Nerds Vote at Nerds Vote on Instagram and whatever they call it now, X.
Yeah.
I've joined your Queer Vox mailing list.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome.
Well, your voice got really high-pitched. Was that sincere? Because I've been told when somebody's voice gets really high, that's not sincere. Oh, wonderful! Can't wait to see your email.
No, it's me. It's authentic joy because this is all an act, and this is when I'm really happy. Yeah.
Fabulous, Michael. Where can people find and follow you?
Instagram is Michael Vega actor. Michael Vega on IMDb. Michael Vega on Facebook. Yeah, that's about it.
Fabulous. All right, come see me liven things up at Gay Geeks and where to find them at WonderCon on Friday, March 26th at 6 p.m. at room 300A. And I'm told that there's like a Star Trek makeshift bar at a local hotel right after, so I'm all about that. And that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here at On the Rocks. A big thank you to our engineer and station owner, Tony Sweet, our social media clip editor, Alexis Mendez. Coming up, we have Hot from Broadway. We're chatting with Stephen Mark Lucas, currently starring as Nicky Armstein in the Broadway National Tour. He was in Book of Mormon too, by the way. I wonder if they know each other.
Probably.
Funny Girl is here in LA, and we got them. Please like, share, subscribe so we can continue bringing you the show coming your way for free. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy, and if you drink, stay tipsy and drink House of Love. No, I knew it. I'm just teasing. House of Love. This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me, slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.